The next thing we looked at was patients, so group sizes, how many people are coming in at a time, what the turnover is like. What did you see? It was pretty small group sizes for your outpatient treatment?
Yeah, I want to say seven people at a time.
Okay.
So very intimate group.
And you're going to know those people. Do they start at the same time as you then? Is that how they?
Yeah. For the outpatient program, it's like cohorts, one intake for this 7 people that starts on this day. And you have to, go through the whole thing with them.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing. Like I think it would be better even in bigger facilities, and maybe some of them do this, but instead of just having kind of a constant rotation of people coming in and out, I think it would be better if you got set up originally with a group of people who are just coming in, so you're all kind of at the same stage.
Yeah.
I think it prevents, you're always going to get those people who are just about out the other end, and all they're talking about is getting back out there and doing drugs. And, there's going to be different kind of stages and levels of commitment to the program too.
Sure.
So I think starting out at the same marker probably at least mitigates that somewhat.
I think so too. And it to my thinking, please correct me if I'm wrong, like in the inpatient setting where you're living with these people, could it not create a sense of camaraderie and help foster some relationships there?
I would think it would. Yeah. I mean, especially like some of the facilities are not like you can pay for a private room, but if you're in a healthcare funded one, you're probably not going to get a private room. So that means you're going to be with 2 or 3 other people that may be at different spots in the program. They could be, this could be their 10th time through. This could be their first time through. They could be very excited about getting better. They could be there because their wife is forcing them under duress or threat of divorce. I mean, there's all sorts of different kind of attitudes, I guess.
Do you remember how many people were there when you were at inpatient?
I don't know, hundreds.
It was that big of a facility. There are that many there.
Yeah, because there's people at all stages going through. And then they've got a PTSD program there. They've got a eating disorder program there. They've got other mental health disorders that are kind of segmented, but also involved. I don't know, maybe in our daily, when we would all eat together, maybe there was say 50 to 70.
Wow. So huge.
Yeah. Huge. Yeah. So it'd take a while to get to know what was going on, right? And there's all sorts of shenanigans, and people over there are obviously you'd see everything, right? You get the full kind of smattering of individuals in there. But that was something that leads me to something that I brought up to you the other day, which is peer harmony, and that's a term that I've just kind of decided to come up with because thinking about this stuff and working with Obsidian, what I've found is that when you are using any kind of program that relies on peer support, it seems to me that the closer the peers are in lived experience, sometimes can be gender, vocation, age even, or kind of where they're at in their own recovery, can make a huge difference in how relatable those peers are to each other.
Yes.
So, for instance, I've got I have a memory of a gentleman that was involved in our program, and he was in our day group. So we would have, when we were working on specific recovery based programs or whatever, we'd be in like a group of 12. And every once in a while, this older gentleman would come through. He was there under basically his family was supporting him financially, I think, and he had a really he was having a really tough time with alcohol, and he didn't want to be there at all. And the only way they could keep him in that facility was to basically tranquilize him, like to the point where he did not know, like he could barely speak. He would just basically fall asleep every once in a while as we were doing our exercises and stuff. And to me, like, I get why they would put that guy through there, because he's another person that's paying money to be there, or maybe whatever, whether it's the family or the healthcare system that's paying, it's another paying customer. So I get that part of it, but that person being in the same group as other people who are trying to actually figure out what's going on is not helpful. So that would be, in my mind, an example of some pure disharmony to the extreme.
Totally.
And I don't know if you encountered that in your program at all, Corey, where you had peers that were maybe more relatable, or how did that work for you?
Definitely in the inpatient program. I mean, first of all, in terms of harmony, positive harmony, I remember feeling like such a sigh of relief when on the first day I found out that there was another nurse who was there because of hydromorphone. Like that was just like a oh, thank God. Because it made me feel immediately like I could be understood, at least by one person. And as it was, I think I was understood by the group, but it was really a good thing for me. On this, and I think of on the other side of that spectrum, within that group of 7 that I was in, there was one individual from law enforcement, and that individual sort of became an outlier in that they had a very different frame of reference, quite a different style of communication, a different level of willingness to be vulnerable, and it didn't create disharmony, but I did think for that individual how much more of a sense of harmony they would probably get from being in a group with other law enforcement people. But as it was, it kind of worked out, I think, as best it could have in that scenario. But what I also comes to mind is with online meetings, like peer support and the smart recovery meetings, that those are our caduceus meetings are closed meetings. People have to reach out to you and sort of be brought in. So there's some level of control. But the smart meetings that are out there, the 12-step meetings that are out there, those are open meetings. Anyone can log in to any meeting, and newcomers can log in all the time. And sometimes, not infrequently, you'll have a group that's starting to come back, and everyone's coming back fairly regularly with week to week. And there's some understanding and there's some harmony happening. People are being vulnerable, and newcomers can come in sometimes just at no fault of their own, with a very different frame of reference, with a very different state of mental health or style of communication. And it can really, like, I've seen it happen where it can just, like, within 10 minutes close people off. And people can go from where you think, oh, the last 2 meetings that person was really talking, and they were sharing, and they were just like, you could see the gains that they were making maybe. And then someone comes in who's might sound critical or might sound judgmental, or just creates a feeling of unsafety in the meeting, and it can just totally shift it. And
burns all the trust. The trust bridges all get burnt immediately, and they're hard to rebuild.
Very hard. And then then to say to the person who has just been so courageous and vulnerable and opened up, and then they kind of back off again to try to say, no, it's okay. You can still share here. Part of that has to be is dependent on the facilitator, I think, in keeping that space safe.
Sure.
But part of it is just the nature of having open meetings and having an inpatient program where people come and go, and people are at different stages of life. But it's a really I mean, for lack of a better word, it's just an interesting thing to observe how that can change a group dynamic.
Yeah, well, it sure does. Bringing up the RCMP group member there is that's a great example. I've had a couple RCMP group members in Obsidian, and great guys with very different kind of bases of like their history is way different, the things they've been through is way different, and their culture. There's a culture there in that vocation that is just very different.
Yeah,
and it doesn't really. I think it's really hard for them to kind of relate to specifically. I mean, there's a little bit of maybe with nurses and first responders, there's a little bit of an understanding there, but it's another kind of bridge to cross. So I guess in a perfect world, or if you had the facility that had the resources to be that specialized, it would be something where you would be watching people come in and be like, "Okay, all right, we got this person, this background, this level of education, maybe their age, gender, whatever." And there's arguments to be made about the gender thing, but I think there is a very real aspect to putting people together who are kind of trying to accomplish the same thing with the same background, or at least as close to it as possible.
Yeah, totally agree, Nathan. And I think there's also something to be said, as we know in your Obsidian meetings, that there's a lot to be gained from controlling the group size. And in the SMART community, one of the things that's happened within the last maybe 6 or 9 months is that my particular community that I was attending was growing so large that that facilitators were added. So I would take half the group, or sometimes a third of the group, and then the other facilitator or facilitators would take the other one, so that group size was kept to like 10 or 12 people max.
Yeah.
And that creates harmony. That creates safety. I remember, just for kicks early on, when I was doing the inpatient program, the facilitator wanted us, we had to attend a meeting every day. And so my SMART meetings didn't run every day, so I would attend 12-step meetings just for the sake of signing off saying that I attended a meeting. And I remember just for kicks, I attended like a Hollywood, California meeting and just to see what it was like. And there were like 85 people in the room in the Zoom meeting, in the Zoom session. Yeah. And I thought, like, how could this be productive? How there's 85 people in a Zoom meeting? There's no safety in that.
There's no support either. I found that it's online, and I don't know. I went to a Caduceus meeting where there was like I don't know, there had to be 50 people, and it was a disaster. Like a full blown disaster.
Yeah.
It's just I believe that the limit has to be 12 under all circumstances, but especially online, like even 10. Because I think there's a period of time too where people, they run out of glucose. They're just, they don't have the time. And you always get that. It's like 50 minutes is about the max people are willing to really engage in general. Lots of times they'll go longer, but I mean, that Caduceus meeting over East there was scheduled for 3 hours. 3 hours, man.
Oh my God. Wow.
Like, what in the hell? I mean, I don't know. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.